I got a heart. If it was somebody else's mother, I feel like I would feel their pain.
What does justice look like for you?
He needs to be charged criminally.
If you had a dog, a pickup, and $100, you're in business.
Come on over here, Dante. We need to talk to you. Dante, can you put us in touch with somebody? I don't think he's going to help us. Hello, and welcome to Investigation Nation, brought to you by our network of journalists. I'm Chris Ingalls in Seattle. In this hour, we spotlight impactful investigative reporting that's led to real change. We start in Florida, where a mentally ill woman died behind bars, and the truth only came to light when our team asked questions.
I'm Jennifer Titus in Tampa, Florida. When an inmate dies, the agency usually sends out a short email. Few details, few answers. It's up to us as journalists to follow up months later for the final death report, even longer for internal affairs. That's what happened in the case of Essie Ward. When those reports finally came in, we learned that several deputies either resigned or were suspended. Here's why. Walking through Lincoln Park Cemetery.
Uncle Calvin,
yeah.
Grandma Virginia.
Yep.
The Mills siblings never thought
Grandma Virginia. I be making sure I see them too, but
the day would come when they'd be visiting
I love you, Mom.
their own mother here.
We love you, always and forever.
I had a visitation with her, and I know my mom. And she was talking to me, and I seen that she was proud of me.
I never knew that seeing her on that visit was my last time seeing her dead.
Essie Ward struggled with her mental health.
She battled from schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. She has been arrested before, and the times that she was arrested before, she was suffering mental health issues.
Late last year, she hit another crisis.
What put my mom back behind bars was she had another mental health episode.
Arrested on November 30th, 2024, and charged with armed burglary, grand theft, possession, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon.
She was not getting the medicine at all.
Behind bars, she only got worse.
I used to try to comfort my mom and just let her know, I'm going to make sure that I get you the help that you need.
Court documents show her public defender believed she was not competent to stand trial. The competency results were set to be heard on April 25th.
She had already been in there like 3-4 months.
But instead, Essie's children would get a phone call 3 weeks before that court date that would change their lives forever.
I didn't hear the words at first. It didn't register until I heard her crying, because she was crying. I was like, what you crying for? And I heard it, but I didn't hear it. I was like, I'm not hearing what I'm hearing.
It would take several months for Essie's children to learn more about what happened that day. We obtained the death investigation report more than 5 months later from the Polk County Sheriff's Office that said deputies found Essie unresponsive in her cell around 9:30 in the morning, April 3rd. She was being housed alone. Deputies responded and performed life-saving measures for 23 minutes before giving up resuscitating her. But the medical examiner noted her body was already in the early stages of decomposition and was dead 18 to 24 hours before that. The family wanting to know how someone was left unnoticed for so long. So did we. We requested the final internal affairs report regarding Essie Ward's death. After a back and forth where we were once quoted over $1,000, it arrived in our inbox in November. That's when we learned 4 deputies would have been terminated, but they resigned before the investigation was complete. 3 supervisors were also suspended for 120 hours without pay. The report reveals that on March 31st, days before Essie died, she was the subject of a protective action. A deputy said Ward was throwing foam cups, yelling and walking toward her. The deputy pepper sprayed her and then used a low-voltage shock glove on her right forearm. The report stated Essie declined to shower, and a nurse noted red, watery, burning eyes and skin. Would your mom have been, and when she's in a regular state of mind, would she have ever tried to attack a deputy?
She don't attack nobody anyway. If anything, my mom would say is don't put your hands on her. But that's just how she was, like don't touch her at times. But she wasn't a violent person.
The next day, records say she ate lunch and dinner. She stood for a head count at 6 p.m. That was the last time anyone saw her standing. Inmate activity logs required every 15 minutes because S.E. Ward was housed in the mental health medical housing unit showed deputies claimed to see movement, but some admitted they couldn't see her face, she never ate her food, and they did not confirm whether her chest was rising and falling.
I did see when I did a round, she did not touch her dinner tray.
Did you make any contact with her?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No, I did not.
All right. Did you notice at that time of those rounds, where was she, still in bed or?
When I saw her, yes, sir, she was still in bed.
It's hard, it's tough, it's heartbreaking. My mom didn't receive the proper care. You know, it's all there for her to be deceased 24 hours in her cell. She never got the 15-minute round check. If my mom received those 15-minute round checks, she could possibly still be here today.
She wasn't eating for a couple of days, and I knocked on her door, and I told them, and they saw me knocking on her door. They said, "Don't wake her up."
When you see that there's a lack of meal intake from that specific detainee, it's going to give you it should give you the nudge to check into that.
Former Corrections Deputy Pete Bloodworth says that's not optional.
It appeared as though the individual was underneath a blanket and they were not able to see the rising and lowering of the chest. That would be an indicator that you would have to do something to try to engage in some type of activity with the inmate.
He says accountability rests on those performing the rounds.
When they did the head count, did they check for the chest to rise and lower? Did they interact with the individual to ensure their well-being? When they were making the security checks, were they communicating with each other? Unfortunately, in this situation, there was a catastrophic event that took place.
In the prisons where he worked, you had to actually see an inmate stand as part of the head count.
Now, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they use 3 counts that have to stand.
We put in multiple requests to speak with Sheriff Grady Judd about what happened to Essie.
Continue to watch over us, Mom.
And while the Mills siblings know some deputies were disciplined, they want more than that.
It's just sad and it's heartbreaking that I had to hear that my mom went through what she went through, and it was no care, no concern in it nowhere because of where she was at.
I look at it as everybody got a mother. What is your mother? And to watch people act like, because it's not their mother, they not fighting. It's like a brush under the rug. That hurt. Because I got a heart. If it was somebody else's mother, I feel like I would feel their pain.
Now, the medical examiner did rule that S.E. Ward died of heart disease. Again, the sheriff's office denied our interview request, but they did send us a statement that said, in part, regardless of their failure to follow proper procedures, they did not contribute in S.E. Ward's death. It also went on to say they have added another layer of systematically checking on inmates. For Investigation Nation, I'm Jennifer Titus.
When we come back, everybody's talking about those GLP-1 diet drugs, but you won't believe what we found inside one pharmacy that manufactures them. A warning for consumers ahead. You've probably heard of the class of diet drugs called GLP-1s, like Ozempic and Zepbound. Well, now we expose that not all these drugs are created equal. In this Kirkland Business Park, a telehealth pharmacy that manufactured diet drugs had a problem. In its small production facility, Equita grew quickly, but had a hard time holding on to employees. This man, operations manager James Lindsay, had a solution to the manpower shortage, according to whistleblowers who filed complaints with the Washington State Department of Health. Equita produced versions of the hottest drugs on the market, GLP-1 weight loss compounds. Pharmacists manufactured the products in this sterile glass enclosure at the Kirkland facility called a clean room. When the company needed more workers to process the thousands of medicine kits it shipped each day across the U.S., it didn't turn to LinkedIn or networking sites to find employees with the right credentials. Instead, Lindsay found workers like these men by hitting the parking lots of home improvement stores, according to 6 former Equita employees interviewed by the King 5 investigators. Were they really going to Home Depot and Lowe's parking lots and scooping up employees?
They would come over to our main facility, our main pharmacy, and actually handle the pharmaceuticals themselves when we were short-staffed and they didn't have any state licensing.
What did you think of that?
That I did not like, and I did not agree with it.
For 4 months last year, Paul Myers ordered supplies and received deliveries as Equita's lab manager. Myers is the only one of the 6 former employees we spoke with willing to appear on camera. Video from inside Equita documents a string of violations at the licensed facility. A day laborer opens a refrigerator. It's stocked with GLP-1 medications and patient names. Access is restricted by law to licensed staff only. But the temporary employee sorts through tubs of medicine. Operations manager James Lindsay walks by, apparently unconcerned that an untrained stranger has access. In other videos, you can see groups of day laborers packing medicine and labeling boxes for shipment, also work that is supposed to be handled by licensed pharmacy assistants.
They were there pretty much all the time. Most days that I was there, they were there.
Federal regulations require that cameras monitor pharmaceutical operations. Whistleblowers gave these images from inside Equita to state health department investigators last year. The source that provided them to King 5 did not want to be identified.
There was definitely a big push for maximizing output of shipments.
You're saying the emphasis was not on safety and quality control?
No.
The emphasis was on what?
Making money. 100% making money, and that was the primary focus.
We had many questions for Equita's owners. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on.
I can't speak about it, sorry.
We took those questions to Equita's Kirkland facility earlier this month, where a man who identified himself as Dante answered the door. I'm hoping somebody from the company will talk to me and explain.
Okay, that sounds good. Well,
Okay.
I will let my manager know, and I suppose he'll probably reach out.
She didn't. She is the CEO of San Francisco-based Mochi Health, which owns and operates Equita. Myra Ahmad, a University of Washington Medical School dropout, founded the telehealth startup in 2022.
By starting this company and by helping people sustainably lose weight all across the nation, you would be able to touch millions of lives.
Sold under the Mochi name, the company's products use the same active weight loss ingredients as name brands like Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Zepbound.
This is Mochi's new all-in pricing.
But Mochi is much cheaper. Why? Records from the Department of Health say Mochi took alarming shortcuts. Whistleblowers filed complaints in late 2024, and DOH launched an investigation. One pharmacist at the Kirkland facility said managers pushed him to verify prescriptions as fast as you can and based salaries on output. With only a second or two to examine each medicine vial, it was very difficult to maintain quality. Mochi customers posted photos of specks of contamination in their vials, the very thing pharmacists are supposed to flag.
Very frequently, the pharmacists complained about debris being in the vials.
A whistleblower shared this photo, a bin of medicine kits returned by customers who could see something was wrong with the medication the pharmacy sent.
Because they were packaging pharmaceuticals before they knew if they were good or not. That is a major, major violation to me.
Whistleblowers called one controversy Glassgate. Equita bought medicine vials from Alibaba, a website selling glassware cheaper than medical supply companies. But the vials were breaking and shattering in the pharmacy and in transit to customers. Here's another problem that sounds silly, but is serious for a medicine that must be shipped cold. Equita managers had employees wrap drugs in frozen Otter Pops, a popsicle treat for children, instead of medical-grade ice packs. That stopped when there were tons of complaints and negative online posts from patients.
I was so sick that I thought I was dying.
Some patients claim Mochi medicine made them sick.
And I've been throwing up in our bucket here.
Sean Rose of Chicago put his experience on TikTok after he said an injection of Mochi GLP-1 made him violently ill. How many times did you end up going to the hospital?
4 times in total. Admitted twice, released through the ER twice. At one point, they told me if I wouldn't have came in, sorry. If I wouldn't have came in when I did, I would have probably died.
Sean Rose says his mochi medicine came from an Illinois pharmacy, not Kirkland, and the state of Illinois is investigating. This is Dante, right here. Come on over here, Dante. We need to talk to you. We returned to Mochi's Kirkland operation when our calls and emails did not get a response. Can you put us in touch with somebody? Dante, can you put us in touch with somebody? I don't think he's going to help us. Afterwards, Myra Ahmad, the Mochi founder, sent this email, forwarding to our team who can chat with you. We haven't heard from the team. Do you regret working for that company?
I do, yeah. I have had regret working there because my effort there potentially could have hurt people, and that's not what I want to do.
Coming up, a legal system that fails to stop crooked contractors. Our team reveals a system stacked against frustrated homeowners.
I'm Rebecca Lindstrom in Atlanta. Hiring the wrong contractor turned this dream home into a nightmare. But it also exposed a civil court system that, instead of holding bad actors accountable, just led to more costs and confusion. It looks like a tornado hit this house.
The whole thing is just upsetting.
But Associate Baden and his wife Brooke say this damage wasn't a natural disaster. It was their contractor.
He took the money, destroyed the house, neglected the project, went on a run.
He is Rafael Cabral with NRC Roofing and Remodeling. The Abadens paid him $50,000 for the initial labor and materials to add another floor onto their new house. His crew came, prepped the project, and tore off the roof, but then never returned.
So we have a newborn baby, no house, paying mortgage and rent.
Cabral didn't even show up in court when the Abadens filed a civil lawsuit. And their attorney, Pat Dixon, says Cabral hasn't paid a dime on the $441,000 default judgment they won.
Judgment is only a sheet of paper. And so after you get the judgment, another case essentially starts.
Because it is up to the victim to spend more money to hire private investigators, subpoena banks, and pay deputies to try to collect.
A lot of people will just wait to get a judgment and wrap that judgment into the bankruptcy file.
For years, I have covered stories of judgments that call out bad contractors and fraudulent business deals. Like the Abadens, they are all still waiting to collect.
I was hopeful when we got the verdict. I thought that he was going to follow through and make payments and, but foolish me.
No one tracks the success rate of these lawsuits. So we did, spending nearly a week studying breach of contract cases like the Abadens filed here at the Gwinnett County Courthouse in 2023. 37% of the people who filed against another person or small business won or agreed to a settlement. But of those who received a judgment, we could only find 3 that had actually been paid. Most were still fighting to collect. And 2 years later, another 17% were still going through the process.
It is not working. It's not working at all.
Some cases stop before they start. A judge has no choice but to dismiss the case if the person being sued isn't notified. Dixon says they spent nearly $1,000 to find Cabral.
We've had process servers tell us that there's people that open the blinds and just won't come to the door.
So then why bother?
We, as a society, don't stand up to these folks. I think they're just going to continue to do this.
Is this Rafael Cabral? We briefly talked with a man named Rafael Cabral.
Hello?
Who advertises a roofing business. But as soon as we started asking questions about the Abadens... So you did not do any roofing work? He hung up. Hello? Twice. And my email went unanswered.
What does justice look like for you?
He needs to be charged criminally.
The Abadens attorney agrees. They say police need more training on fraud and theft charges to look beyond the broken contract and see the crime. And Georgia needs a system that makes accountability and enforcement possible.
It's disheartening for me. It's sad. I don't even want to come and visit the house.
In Atlanta, Rebecca Lindstrom, 11 Alive News investigates.
We're dealing with similar issues in Idaho where homeowners are losing thousands of dollars to contractors who take their deposits and then disappear. Sam and Caroline Rolifson, who live in Boise, paid nearly $20,000 to a contractor who never started on their deck and later turned up on the Ada County Jail roster charged with grand theft.
We were ashamed of ourselves for falling victim to this. I mean, I'm a military veteran, my wife's in healthcare. I can't believe someone would look you in the face, come into your home, agree to do things, and then just take your money and run.
The Rolifsons aren't alone. The state received nearly 400 contractor complaints in just the last 7 months. The problem? Idaho has a lenient contractor registration system that allows bad actors to take advantage of homeowners. Idaho only requires contractors be registered, not licensed, meaning no exams, no training, just a $100 fee and liability insurance.
We had one of our investigators say that if you had a dog, a pickup, and $100, you're in business as a contractor.
Contractors can even lose their registration and re-register under a different name. Legislation has been proposed at the State House to give the contractor board more power, including a 3-strike rule for repeat violators. But that bill faces an uphill battle with lawmakers wary of added regulation. Experts say until more protections are in place, verify contractor registration, demand a written contract with milestone payments, and avoid large upfront deposits, especially in cash. To watch our full 2-part investigation on bad contractors, head to our website, ktvb.com. In Boise, I'm Morgan Romero for Investigation Nation.
They put you in danger on the roadways and just keep on trucking. A multi-state investigation when we come back.
This is a screw-up of such magnitude that, frankly, heads should roll.
And then something horrible did happen.
The whole family died needlessly.
It's not meant to scare anybody, it's just meant to improve our decisions.
Welcome back to Investigation Nation. Now, trucking companies with bad safety records. This team investigation reveals how they keep rolling down the road, putting lives at risk.
By the millions, semis crisscross a country with a perpetual craving for more. Daily deliveries of tons and tons of freight. The laws of science suggest once in motion, they will stay in motion.
My last memory, she was closing the door, porch lights on, and I see her silhouette.
I think she's still gonna walk through that door.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay.
I couldn't touch you, Lisa. Your daughters are in this situation, you can't help them.
Yet what happens when laws go ignored?
They don't care about rules, they just care about dropping off the load and making that money.
Profit above people. Yeah, that's their main concern.
And I try to avoid the light.
The sound of the crashing of the semi, it's a sound you don't forget.
I'm afraid when I drive now, and I'm a truck driver.
For 1 year,
so they wouldn't actually be physically here.
Teams in Texas and Florida investigated a national problem.
What do you hope changes?
Could the accident have been prevented?
What they found, a lack of accountability.
There's multiple things that FMCSA could do, but they need authority. It's a multifaceted blame to go around.
It's a flaw in the system.
A system where too many risk too much to stay on roads we use daily.
There's a lot of companies cutting corners.
On our roads with all their twists and turns, our investigators found blind spots everywhere.
And they're out there on our roadways driving up to 80,000-pound tractor trailers, killing and injuring people.
It's mind-boggling what's overlooked.
It's a dangerous game of chance played out daily on our highways and interstates. You see them everywhere. Commercial trucks, semis, most are responsibly run. Most but not all. 15 people die a day in semi-truck crashes. That's a 40% increase from 2013 to 2023. And what we've spent the past year uncovering shows us that the very system designed to keep us safe isn't working. I'm Jennifer Titus at WTSP in Tampa, Florida.
And I'm Tanya Iser with WFA TV in Dallas, Texas. We've uncovered how trucking companies with serious safety violations shut down, only to reopen under different names. They're called chameleon carriers. And we've uncovered that the system meant to stop them isn't working. Last June in Terrell, Texas, nearly an entire family died in a crash involving one of these carriers. It's heartbreaking and shows why something needs to change.
Zabar, he was a rapper. He was on stage with Evan and Kaysen, and he was rapping about Jesus. They kind of look up to their dad as being a leader. My daughter is kind of quiet. She just sit back and direct.
All that's left for Anthony Epperson are memories. His son-in-law, Zabar, his daughter, Krishan, and his grandson, Kaysen.
And they had just left a memorial for his dad's family member, and they were on their way back to Fort Worth.
They were among the 5 people killed June 28, 2025, when an 18-wheeler crashed into their car in Terrell, Texas. Zabar's father died too.
I think they got held in a traffic jam, and this guy came plowing and ran into the rear of them and crushed them. That was, I'm a truck driver. I would never do that. You're talking about an 80,000-pound truck running into them at a standstill. That's a freight train.
And then you find out about your granddaughter.
Yes, when I found out about Evan, she survived. That was very happy. It was heartwarming that one person survived.
The 20-year-old college student lost her foot.
I was happy that she don't remember that accident.
Sometimes that's God's grace.
Yes, it is. I think it is.
The driver told investigators he fell asleep at the wheel, and federal records show he was cited for 7 violations, all for his driving hours. He's in jail facing charges of manslaughter and aggravated assault. But this wasn't about one apparently exhausted driver. The company he worked for displayed a pattern of pushing drivers past federal drive time limits. That company was Hope Trans.
The whole family died needlessly.
John Nahinik represents Epperson.
There are so many issues with the company, their safety record. It's a matter of time before this happens.
Hope Trans was hired to haul the shipment for the post office. The truck began its journey at a postal distribution center outside Atlanta. Its next stop, Irving, Texas. That route from Atlanta to Irving spans 800 miles. Postal rules are clear. Team drivers are required for trips over 500 miles. In this case, the driver was alone when the crash happened.
My heart just kind of dropped, like, man, that could have been me.
This truck driver used to work for Hope Trans. He asked us to conceal his identity.
There was just so many red flags.
The truck driver provided us messages with company dispatchers, including records from a postal service run he took from Atlanta to Phoenix.
They pressured me into this load. I next day shipped it from Atlanta all the way to Phoenix, off of 3 hours of sleep.
By federal law, truckers can't drive more than 11 hours a day. Then they must take a 10-hour break.
You message this log company on Telegram telling, hey, I need more hours. Here they come sending you a bill of lading that's been edited to match those new logs.
Here's the bill of lading, which is the contract for the load. It shows the departure date was backdated as well, from June 9th to June 8th.
I could have quit. I could have said no. I was one paycheck loss away from my wife and kids losing our house.
He and another former Hope Trans trucker also provided us this message, instructing drivers to hide any original paperwork and noting that showing the original document can lead to a major violation. Federal records show Hope Trans drivers were repeatedly cited for driving beyond the 11-hour driving limit.
They don't care about rules. They just care about dropping off the load and making that money.
The other Hope Trans trucker says there was a code for asking for more drive time.
All I had to say was, I need a cup of coffee, and they would give me more time.
It really gets my blood boiling for this family, because if they were doing that, if Hope was doing that, they for sure didn't belong on the road.
At the time of the crash, Hope Trans listed a Tacoma address in federal records. But that address, a co-working space. When our sister station in Seattle showed up a few days after the crash, staff said the company only got mail there. They didn't actually work there. When a trucking company registers, it's required to list a principal place of business. That means a real physical address, not just a mailbox or P.O. box. It's supposed to be where driver and safety records are kept and where federal inspectors can show up unannounced to check those records.
And so it all kind of ties together.
Dale Prax owns Freight Validate, a company that tracks fraud and identity theft in trucking.
I'm not saying that everybody that has a mailbox address is a bad guy, even though it's non-compliant. But I'll tell you, a huge percent of the people that are bad guys have those kind of addresses.
Take a look at this quiet building in Signal Hill, California. It doesn't look like the headquarters of hundreds of trucking companies, right?
It's the registered physical address of over 600 trucking companies, and it has been for a long, long time.
In fact, roughly 500 of those companies listed the same email, WTF FMCSA at AOL.com.
Shut them down tomorrow. Make them explain that. That's not proper.
We also found 20 trucking companies registered to this building on West Commerce Street in Dallas, a virtual mailbox spot called physicaladress.com. For as little as $8 a month, anyone can set up shop here. No truck required. So they wouldn't actually be physically here?
No, they would not be working here physically, no.
So if like the federal government wanted to come check records for that company or any of those companies, they wouldn't come here?
No.
It's a lack of enforcement. It's simply a lack of enforcement. It's sort of like having mice in the house. If you're not going to try and get rid of them, well, they grow.
And 2 days after that deadly crash killed 5 people in Terrell, Texas, federal records show Hope Trans's address suddenly changed.
That co-working space in Washington State changed to an apartment complex in Orlando. Which led us back on I-4 to that apartment complex where no one answered the door. But we did find this business card from an FMCSA investigator looking for the same people we were. Have you ever seen the name Hope Trans LLC at all?
No. Oh, that's a name you can remember, no.
We then headed to another address we found tied to Hope Trans. When we got to the business complex, the unit was locked.
B-Zone Logistics.
And on the door, an eviction notice for a company called B-Zone Logistics. At the time of that crash in Texas, the owner of Hope Trans was listed as Aisha Magomedova. The owner's husband was tied to B-Zone Logistics and another company, Cardan Trucking, both with troubled safety histories. All of them had used the same Orlando address.
That one was an absolute textbook case of, we'll call it a chameleon.
A former driver snapped a photo of his company fuel card. The name on it? B-Zone Logistics.
B-Zone, I was like, why? What is B-Zone? It was a red flag.
Federal inspection records compiled by Blue Wire show a clear pattern of chameleon carrier activity. Trucks first ran under Cardan, then B-Zone, and now Hope Trans. 45 trucks showed up with at least 2 of the companies, 11 with all 3.
It was like a light switch got flipped. Those VIN numbers then started appearing in the inspections and crash reports for a different DOT number. It was an absolute deliberate, evasive maneuver to take their existing fleet and just move it into a new DOT number and just keep on operating.
Hope Trans continued to operate for more than 3 months after that crash. In that time, they racked up numerous safety violations all over the United States. They shut down after losing their insurance.
And this is just one example that you'll see in our hour-long special. We've uncovered systemic failures that allow unsafe trucking companies to stay on the road after deadly crashes all across the nation. Just search Blind Spots in your station's app.
Important data that can make your home safer. We'll reveal how it blew away with the political winds when we come back. A 2024 hurricane brought catastrophe to North Carolina. Our team there reveals how lawmakers defunded a program that might have protected some people.
I'm Nate Morabito in Charlotte. Helene, with its relentless rain, triggered thousands of landslides, killing at least 31 people. Years before the unprecedented storm, a taxpayer-funded program promised to flag landslide risks, then became a political casualty.
Oh my goodness!
Rebuilding. Fleeting moments of light, often overshadowed
I sit and look at it every day.
by darkness.
Our entire relationship right there.
Jamie and Melissa Gwynn spent most of their marriage inside this Avery County home. Bought in 2018, high above the river, they felt safe, even during Helene.
We never thought nothing about the mountain coming down on us.
Today, Jamie
It literally hit and just took the house.
can't bring himself back.
It's the worst pain you could imagine in a split second.
Jamie and their son somehow survived multiple landslides that day,
Me and River ended up down in the river.
only for the last one to take Melissa's life.
By the time I looked back, she was gone.
The life they built destroyed by something they didn't even know posed a risk.
Without knowing this, it literally upended my life.
Scientists wanted to prevent this.
This came from a small piece of earth that slipped way up there.
David Cordy and his small team are now playing catch-up.
Follow a mountain stream channel.
Geologists have spent the last 7 years rebuilding the state's landslide mapping program. An even greater challenge now, but also more critical than ever.
There were signs that this has failed before, yeah.
Their goal is to inventory every landslide in western North Carolina history, like this one in Buncombe County, caused by Helene.
They tend to happen near where they've happened before.
They started posting their finished maps online in 2021. Think of them as a warning system.
Could be 100 years, could be 10,000 years, could be 100,000 years, could be 10 years.
An indicator of possible future danger.
It's not meant to scare anybody, it's just meant to improve our decisions.
It's a concept state lawmakers first embraced 2 decades ago, after landslides during Hurricanes Francis and Ivan killed 5 people. In 2005, the North Carolina General Assembly dedicated about $500,000 a year to create and sustain the landslide mapping program. Legislators tasked the team with mapping landslides in 19 western North Carolina counties. The geologists fully mapped 4 of those counties, but in 2011, the political winds shifted. Amid concerns from realtors and builders worried about property values, liability, and government regulation, the newly led Republican General Assembly shut the program down. Then, in 2018, another storm hit, prompting more deadly landslides in western North Carolina. The General Assembly, again controlled by Republicans, lifted the freeze and dedicated limited funding to the effort, which restarted in 2019.
I believe it saved lives.
In the time since, Cordy's team has mapped another 5 counties, information that's helped some homeowners, builders, and planners understand the risks and assess their comfort level.
You don't want to build the school here, you want to move it over 500 feet.
Cordy's now asking lawmakers to expand the program and dedicate recurring money so he can hire more people and keep up with the daunting workload. At the same time, it's hard not to look back and wonder, what was the impact?
It probably decreased awareness.
How many other counties geologists could have mapped had lawmakers not stopped the program for 8 years? At a pace of 1 per year, that's roughly 8 counties. By the time Helene hit, most counties on this side of the state were unmapped.
I'd give anything if that would have already been done.
Including Avery.
That would have changed my entire life.
With no warnings about their property, Jamie and River Gwynn lost their foundation.
To me, she was perfect.
As they rebuild without Melissa,
You got a bunch of pieces.
the father and son are traumatized.
You're always paranoid that the mountain's going to cave down on top of you.
Now living in a different home in the shadow of another mountain, they, like people in most western North Carolina counties, still don't know if their house is near a historic landslide site. The North Carolina Home Builders Association is quick to tell us the organization's past questions about landslide mapping doesn't equate to formal opposition. A spokesperson told us NCHBA supports efforts to identify and communicate landslide risks so that communities, property owners, and builders can make informed decisions, saying, quote, "We share the goal of keeping our fellow neighbors out of harm's way." Nate Morabito, WCNC Charlotte.
Coming up, 2 children with grave injuries that changed their lives forever. Then, a state agency made it worse. missed warnings, and a missed deadline. Our team reveals how it could cost Washington state taxpayers.
I'm Andy Judson in Seattle. Our investigation found 2 children who were showing every sign of being in danger. Child Protective Services knew about this, but didn't step in until it was too late. Now that same agency has made another mistake, one that could cost taxpayers millions of dollars.
Would you like the one with the most sprinkles or the least sprinkles?
The most.
So you're on the fork? It makes me angry. Yeah.
I can use my hands.
Okay. Just knowing that neither one would be the way that they are if DCYF had done their job.
DCYF, the agency entrusted with protecting Washington's most vulnerable, our children.
Tilly. I'm gonna check on your sister, okay?
Leo, who goes by Bubby, is one of them.
Hi. Hi.
So is Tilly, short for Matilda. Children born into different families miles apart. What they share were clear, documented warning signs of neglect.
People were saying something horrible is gonna happen, and it was still completely ignored.
And then something horrible did happen.
Bubby burned alive. A fire left him with burns over 75% of his body. Matilda suffocated, left quadriplegic with cerebral palsy, deaf, blind, and mute.
We have a good routine, but it is not easy. And
out of that pain, they found each other. They're siblings now, both adopted by Sarah and David Strode of Lakewood.
I tell my kids, like, you were meant to be Strodes.
Here comes Kitty.
Oh, Bubby, I tell you what.
Records show not only did DCYF fail these kids when it mattered most, but after they made another mistake, one that could cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. We'll get to that in a moment, but first it's important to know the details behind what happened to these children.
People within DCYF knew. They knew what was going to happen.
Bubby was born with meth in his system. Child Protective Services, CPS, knew that, but let his biological parents take him home. Caseworkers were supposed to check on him and his living conditions. Records show they never looked inside. They should have. If they did, they would have seen hazards that investigators say led to this devastating fire. At just 8 months old, Bubby was trapped inside, burning alone. During a recorded call, Bubby's biological father told investigators he'd left the baby for just a few minutes.
It was a big ball of fire, and I just knew that my baby was in there.
In the aftermath, investigators found tangled wires running from the main house to the shed that Bubby lived in, and this, a charred space heater. Neighbors say it was one of many that Bubby was often left next to, strapped in a car seat all day.
It was like 80, 90 degrees in there with 3 heaters going.
It was a recipe for disaster.
When Bubby was pulled from the flames, a neighbor described his skin as literally melting. He was airlifted to Harborview, where a nurse described his wounds as the most severe I have ever encountered. Matilda was also born with drugs in her system. This time, the state acted, placing her with her grandmother with an important condition. A court order saying Matilda should not be left unsupervised with her parents anytime. A critical ruling, the grandmother says DCYF never told her.
The biological parents used heroin, fell asleep. Somehow Matilda was suffocated and found unresponsive and face down at 5 weeks old. And that's all because red flags were ignored.
The Strodes sued the state for what happened and for what comes next. A lifetime of complex, expensive medical needs.
Yeah, with Bubby, it's hard because the kiddo is going to require surgeries his entire life. You woke up.
With Matilda,
she can't suck and she can't swallow.
Every moment requires care.
So she breathes through the trach.
In 25 years, none of us have seen injuries as horrific as have been suffered by Bubby and Matilda.
Marty McLean, who represents the Strodes, knows the stakes. Bubby's lawsuit seeks $165 million. Matilda's $115 million, potentially totaling $280 million.
Remember earlier we told you about another mistake that the state made, one that could cost taxpayers millions? Well, it has to do with lawsuits just like Bubby and Matilda's that could cause a big payout. But the state has a safety net, insurance.
The state has decided to, frankly, buy some of the most expensive insurance anyone has ever heard of.
Taxpayers pay for it, $16 million in premiums each year. That covers up to $50 million for each case. To be covered, the state had a timeline to tell their insurance company about the lawsuits.
All they had to do was take 30 seconds and email the people at these insurance companies, and we wouldn't be here today.
That did not happen.
And they sat on their hands and did nothing.
The state blew the deadline. DCYF had 81 days to notify its insurers. They waited 125 days to send an email.
The email literally was one sentence. Wow. One sentence took 4 months. 4 months, and most certainly cost the taxpayers plenty.
Yeah, you looked at the camera.
As the Strodes lawsuit moves forward, taxpayers, not insurance companies, are likely on the hook. One insurance provider even put it in writing. In a letter to the state, they said it failed to provide timely notice of Matilda and the Strodes claims, resulting in no coverage. King 5 reached out to DCYF asking why and how the state missed such a critical deadline. The agency responded, "Due to active litigation, we cannot comment."
Andy, this is unprecedented. This is a screw-up of such magnitude that, frankly, heads should roll.
Now the harm these children have endured is no longer just theirs to bear. Taxpayers may now share the cost.
And I almost feel like it's intentional now. At this point, I really don't have faith that they are going to do what is right.
Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting investigative journalism. Our reporters are committed to digging for answers and delivering real accountability. From all of us at Investigation Nation, we'll see you next time.